Welcome to the Manna at the Tap podcast. My name is Gloria, and I host this podcast, which offers us daily manna to feed the spiritual soul. We are in the second week of a journey through the season after Pentecost, and today is Tuesday, June the 4th, 2024. We began the week in 1 Samuel chapter 3, where we witnessed God calling Samuel, the teenage son of Hannah and her husband Elkanah, in the dark of night, rousing him from his sleep. Samuel quickly responded to Eli the priest when he heard his name called. "Here I am, you called me." But Eli said he had not, and Samuel was to go back and lie down. After 3 times, Eli realized the Lord was calling Samuel. So Eli the priest then guided Samuel through the protocol of responding to God if it happened again. And he was to say, "Speak, for your servant is listening." And it did happen a fourth time. The lectionary text for today takes us back to 1 Samuel chapter 2, verses 18 to 21. And here we have a snapshot into the life and times of the family of Eli the priest. Eli had 2 sons, and they were double the trouble. They were described as scoundrels who had no regard for the Lord. They bullied the people when they came to present their offerings to God. And the sin of Eli's 2 sons, who were young men, was significant in the Lord's sight because they treated the Lord's offering with contempt. This was the opposite to teenager Samuel, who was both a delight and a bright spot to Eli. During this time, the people's spiritual life reflected the spiritual life of Eli, who was nearly blind, both physically and spiritually, as he could not and would not correct his sons, even though an unnamed prophet told him to do that. But that's the first word in our lectionary reading. But Samuel slept in the Ark of the Covenant, where the light from the lamps never went out. And it was there that he was dedicated to the service of the Lord. The old order was about to pass. The days of the judges were nearing their end, making way for the reign of kings. God took away the promise of Eli's sons succeeding him as priests because they would not listen to God. A new era was about to begin with priests and prophets, and it would start with Samuel, the son Hannah had so diligently prayed for. Our text tells the story of Samuel's ministry before the Lord. And the storyteller points out that Samuel wore a linen ephod. And this looked something like an apron that was worn over the priest's garments. See, Samuel's linen garment was made from the same linen material as the veil that separated and concealed the Holy of Holies. Given that the Holies of Holies was associated with the very presence of God, Samuel's dedication to the service of the Lord was God's way of dealing with Eli's 2 wicked sons, who had corrupted the priesthood. Both Eli and his 2 sons died on the same day. Hannah continued to be involved in Samuel's life. She made him a robe each year and took it to him when she and her husband went up to offer the annual sacrifice. Eli the priest took pleasure in blessing both Hannah and her husband because of how Samuel ministered before the Lord. As Samuel grew, Hannah continued to teach him the stories of God's faithfulness to his people. And the storyteller wants us to know it was a dedicated mother who dedicated her time to preparing and creating a new robe for him that fitted him. Samuel grew up in the presence of the Lord, and he was favored by the people and held in high esteem. The Lord's presence enabled Samuel to grow and become the person who would serve the Lord out of obedience despite his age. In his gospel writing, Luke used the story of Hannah to frame the story of Jesus as a teenager. Jesus and his parents went to the temple in Jerusalem every year, and after his bar mitzvah, he got away from them. For several days, they searched for him, and when they found him, he was sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. His parents were astonished. Luke states that Jesus went home with them and was obedient to them, and Jesus grew in wisdom, stature, and favor with God and humanity, just like Samuel had done.